and that's the Toronto Raptors. I just
I knew you were going to go with the round. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Clutch Talk podcast /YouTube/We Do It All. As always, I'm your host, John. Very happy to be here. My boy Jay Hiz over there in the sixth. How you doing, my brother?
Doing great. We're 4 days out from the season, man. 4 days out from the opening night, and I'm excited to talk about the Eastern Conference too, because this is going to be a crazy year in the East.
This is definitely going to be a crazy year in the East, man. So we thought to ourselves, man, who better to bring than a Bulls fan, someone who loves the East, man, someone who's very knowledgeable in the NBA game. So we brought our guy Garrett from the Super Mario Hoops 24 channel. How you doing, Garrett?
I'm doing pretty good. Like as Jay Hill said, the season's just right around the corner. In a week from today, when we're recording, I'm gonna actually be going to see my Chicago Bulls play live against another Eastern Conference team, the Cleveland Cavaliers, who that should be interesting with Donovan Mitchell, like mixed with Darius Garland, all those guys. But yeah, I mean, season's right underway. Also, I think I may be wrong, but I think you might have intentionally put that Jordan jersey behind there because you're expecting me to
I had to show a little bit of love there, man.
I just noticed that, so I thought that was funny.
Yes, sir, man. Yes, sir. But yeah, guys. So you guys know we did the Western Conference predictions. Well, we haven't dropped it yet, but we'll drop tomorrow, man. I mean, today is Saturday. Over here in the West Coast is 9 in the morning, Saturday, October 15th. But so we'll be dropping the Western Conference predictions tomorrow, which will be Sunday, October 16th. Too much math going on right now in my head, man. But basically, anyway, we here, man. Eastern Conference predictions. We're gonna run it off just like how we did with the West, 15 through 1. We don't really need to waste no time. As all the family know out there, subscribe. We are on the road to 200 subscribers before next year, man. So stay tuned and click that subscribe button. Tell your friend, tell your auntie, tell your cousin, tell your friend's friend. But that's neither here or there. Let's go ahead and get into it. I'm going to go ahead and run off my 15th seed. And I went back and forth with this one, but unfortunately, man, I think as much as I like some individual players they have on that team, I'm going with the Pacers, man, for the 15th seed, man. I mean, last year they were the 13th seed. I like Tyrese Halliburton, Buddy Hield, Miles Turner. But besides them, like, I feel like this team just screams mediocrity and like, it reminds me of the Blazers, but worse. Like, to be honest, in my opinion, every other player besides those top three are just extremely mediocre. And I think Tyrese Halliburton is going to rot away in Indiana unless they got a plan. But that's who I got at the 15th seed. Jay, my brother, you want to run who you got at 15?
Yeah, I'm right there with the Pacers, Jay. This is a team who's honestly, I think they're right in the conversation for Victor. I'm surprised they didn't get rid of Miles Turner and Buddy Hield, but that could be in the Russ cards for the Lakers. I know they would like to have those two guys or another contending team who needs a shooter and Buddy Hield or another big man, because who couldn't use the versatility of Miles Turner? But I also love what they're going to be because, Tyrese Halliburton, we saw what he did when he came to Indiana, but as they're built right now, they're not built for today. They're built for tomorrow and the future. So I think it's going to be a tough year. And they also want Victor because who doesn't if you're a bottom feeding team? I mean, you're not really trying to compete.
Man, Garrett, who you got that 15th seed?
Yeah, I'm in agreement with both of you guys. I think it's the Indiana Pacers. I'm from Indiana, but you probably won't see me going to many Pacers games this year, unless they're playing like someone insane, and I'm gonna just go check them out like for an easy whooping, I guess. But no, I think the Pacers, like Tyrese Halliburton could actually be a low-key most improved player candidate. I think he's gonna have insane stats. I think that drafting Benedict Mathurin was actually a pretty good pick, but overall, I mean, like like you guys said, like they're going to be in the conversation for Victor Wembanyama. And I think having those two guys, maturing, and then also Halliburton for the time being still have Buddy Hield and Miles Turner. Most likely will trade them, but they're most likely going to be going all in for Victor, because I don't see really any potential like spot where they could really fit Scoot Henderson into that mix if they were to get like the second pick or something like that. But I got Pacers at 15. They're just not a great team right now. They are a team like you said, not for today, but for tomorrow. Like a few years from now, they're gonna probably be an elite team again, but not today.
Not today, not today. I'm glad we all in alignment with that. Honestly, these bottom like couple like 4 teams, 3 teams, they're all I said it in yesterday's episode. They're GFV. They're going for Vic. So that's what it is, and that's what this 14th seed team is as well, in my opinion. And that's the Pistons, man. Last year they were also the 14th seed. I think they're they got a lot of young talent, a lot of promising young talent. I love how they recently, given a chance to young players who haven't been really given a chance yet, like Marvin Bagley, Kevin Knox, Nerlens Noel, and their future is bright, man. I mean, their future is bright, but just like how you said, Garrett, not right now, not right now. That's not their turn. So I got the Pistons at the 14th seed. Jay, my brother, is that who you got as well, or you got them a little higher up?
You said you have the Pistons, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, no, I got the Magic, but like you said, all three teams are these are my bottom 3 teams. The Pistons I have above them, but I think the Pistons they might be a little low. That might be a little low because I do like the talent they're building, but it's gonna take some adjustment to fit all the young pieces that they originally had, like the Cole Anthonys, Jalen Suggs. I know he got injured, but when he comes back, Markelle Fultz, when he's healthy, hopefully for a long time, but he's also injured recently too. But I just think these young pieces, Jonathan Isaac, if he ends up coming back, they just got all these guys who play kind of the same positions in guards and wings. So it's going to take an integration process for that. But I like what they're building over there. I think it's just going to take some time, and I don't really know they're ready to compete for a play-in spot at least this year. So they'll still be towards the bottom. So I have them at my 14th.
Yeah. So I think I would assume you guys are in agreement with the bottom 3 because, I mean, we all picked Indiana. You picked Detroit, and then you picked Orlando. So it's like, I think you guys are in agreement with the bottom 3. I'm actually going a different route with a different team. Neither of those two. You guys, I feel like this isn't too surprising, but maybe a little bit surprising because maybe they're expected to be a little bit better, but I have the Washington Wizards. Ooh. I just don't think that they're a really good team. I thought they had a bad offseason. They lost 3 different point guards. They lost KCP. They lost, Thomas Bryant, who granted didn't really play really for them at all like last year, but I don't know. I think that they didn't really get much better. Yes, they're going to have a full season of Porzingis, but ever since, the injury in like 2018, 2019 with Porzingis, he really hasn't been too conducive to winning. Even though he's been on those Mavericks teams that have been great, a lot of that was generated through Luka and the system more so than like Porzingis. And I think he's going to shoot him out of a lot of games. I don't know if I trust the health of him, maybe not even Bradley Beal at this point because he missed a lot of last season. So I don't know. I just don't really like the Wizards, and I got them 14.
Okay. I like that. I like that. I got them close to there, but not at that 14
That's what
seed.
I was thinking. Like it's a little bit of a surprise, not like crazy, but you know what I mean.
It's all good. We like the bold predictions over here at Clutch Talk, man. So let me go ahead and run off my 13th seed. And that's, Jay, exactly who you said, the Orlando Magic. And I'm thinking really the same reasons kind of you, but instead of me thinking that the integration is going to cause them to stumble, I think the abundance of young talent. I mean, Cole Anthony, like how you mentioned, Pablo, the number 1 pick, Jonathan Isaac, who could potentially be Defensive Player of the Year if he really can stay healthy. Jalen Suggs, who's still, I think, just a raw athlete who needs to, really just work on his game all around. Wendell Carter Jr., RJ Hampton, just all these young talent. Like, to me, it's hard to see all these players really lose that many games, like more than the Pistons or more than the Pacers. But I do like that point that you bring up, Jay, of like they all low key do play the same position. So it's like, well, only one can really be on the court out there. So I like that point. But I had to put them there. Just too much talent for me. Like maybe it's stacked up at the guard play, but they have way too much talent for me to just not put them above the Pistons or Pacers, in my opinion. That's why I got the Magic sitting at the 13th seed.
Yeah, I like that reasoning behind that. For my 13th seed, I have the Detroit Pistons coming in at 13. This is a young team that I love. I'm actually excited. I know on the 30th, I'm going down to watch them play my Golden State Warriors, so I'm looking forward to that game. But this is a Detroit team that I really like what they're doing. I like how they're building from the ground up with these young guys. They gave Cade the ropes. We saw them get rid of Wave Kemba Walker last night, officially clearing them of like any veteran presence besides kind of Bojan Bogdanovic. But I like what they're doing there. It's the same thing with Orlando and these other young teams. I think they're like a year maybe or two away from competing, but the young backcourt of Ivy and Cade Cunningham is going to be lethal, I think, in the next couple years here. And they're kind of similar to what I felt Memphis a couple of years ago. They're like a year or two away, but they give me that Memphis East vibes, but they're kind of on the East Coast too. I guess Memphis is kind of the East. But anyways, my point being, Dwayne Casey's the perfect coach, building that defensive mindset into these young guys earlier in their career, but they're a year or two away from competing legitimately in the East, in my opinion.
Yeah, so my number 13, I'm in agreement with you, John. I also have Orlando. Getting the first overall pick, Paolo Banchero. I think that's going to be huge for them, especially because, it seems like at the forward position, it's a little bit weird. I think Franz Wagner is going to get a little bit better too this year. He was up there for, as a rookie of the year candidate early in the year. And then I think he fell into like that next year, like the 4 or 5 spot in terms of the rookie ladder by the end of it. But they're going to have obviously Paolo on the team. Markelle Fultz is going to expected to be healthy. I know he had like a toe fracture. He missed like all the preseason, but I think he should be ready for, if not right by the start of the season, like maybe a week or so in. I don't really know what to expect from the Jonathan Isaac thing. That seems like a whole mystery at this point. But, if he comes into the mix anytime soon, I mean, that's just like, I guess, like a luxury to have at this point. It does suck. They're going to not have Gary Harris this year. I think that he could be one of their veterans for them moving forward. But, I mean, you still have a guy like Terrence Ross off the bench. And I don't know. I think personally, like I have them slated at like 28 wins. I think that they're going to at least surpass that goal that kid set for Cole Anthony, where he's like, are you guys going to win more than 22 games this year? I think that they will win more than 22 games, but they're still not going to be anything but a lottery team.
Yeah, I like that. Definitely agree with the Magic sitting at that 13th. So I'll go ahead and keep it pushing. We go and get to my 12th seed, and that is the Wizards. The Wizards also had the 12th seed last year. And honestly, guys, like I even had this on my notes, like as I was doing this yesterday, like the real reason why I put the Wizards at the 12th seed is because the Magic, the Pistons, and the Pacers are fully tanking. And I can't see a team like tanking with players like Bradley Beal, Kyle Kuzma, and Kristaps Porzingis. I know Kristaps isn't the most reliable, but I feel like Kristaps, Kuz, and Beal on a team together is going to do better. And especially players like Ruchi Hakamura. I think they're going to play way better than teams like Magic, Pistons, and Pacers. Like, I don't really think the Wizards are going to have a good year at all. I'm not like Garrett. I don't have them down there at the 14th, 15th, but I do got them at that 12th seed. No real reason. They won't be better than my 11 on, and they definitely will be better than Magic, Pistons, and Pacers. So that's why I got them sitting at the 12th seed. Jay, who you got, my brother?
I don't have the Wizards there. I have them, one spot lower. I'll just give them that right now. But I have a team who is a prime, who could sneakily be a prime like Vic tank for Vic candidate, and that's the Charlotte Hornets, which is surprising because I don't think the Charlotte Hornets are very good. We saw they lost Miles Bridges is probably out for the whole season. We don't know what his future in the league is or with the team. And then you look at the rest of this roster. It's not really built to win. I don't really like many of the moves or the moves they didn't make in the offseason. They still got a defensive backcourt that lacks defensively and Terry Rozier and LaMelo Ball. LaMelo Ball is probably going to miss some time at the beginning of the season. And I think early on, we could see them start to, rest guys early. But it also at the same time, this is a team whose their owner's Michael Jordan. We know he wants to win, or I don't really see them tanking and resting guys and benching guys like a team like OKC or bottom feeder. But I just don't see them competing or even being in the play-in this year. They got a brand new coach again this year, so and Steve Clifford. And he's coached there before, but this will be his first time with this unit and everything. So it's not looking good for Charlotte. I don't see them competing, and I don't see them being better than the Wizards this year, who I have at the next spot. So I have them coming in 12 this year. I mean, it could be lower, honestly.
I'm right there with you, Jay Hill. I think the Hornets they're my pick for the 12th seed too. They didn't really add anything. Maybe like Mark Williams in the draft that might help them out because they didn't really have a big man last year. They're probably the guy that they played at the 5 some last year that was the best for them was probably Harrell. I would probably say he's better than Plumlee personally, but I guess that could be debated. But they lost him. And then also like the Miles Bridges thing, who, he was like a most improved player candidate, and he was the second best player on their team. Now they're going to have Gordon Hayward back. Like, he's supposed to be healthy. He might help them win a little bit more, but I think overall, like, the team just isn't that good. I think, you're starting to see, like, I think they were talking to LaMelo the other day, and he kind of like hinted towards some frustration, like, with the team or something like that. And even though like this wasn't really ever confirmed, like through the Donovan Mitchell situation, I wouldn't be surprised if the media starts to like, almost push a narrative like LaMelo wants out, LaMelo wants to go somewhere else, because at this point, like, the Hornets just don't look like a good team. They were the 10th seed the last 2 years. I don't even think they'll get that. Like, I think at this point, like, when people think of the Hornets, the only thing that they're looking forward to is like maybe LiAngelo Ball will finally play an NBA game. Like, that's probably like as far as where they're going. So I have them 12th. I don't think they're going to make much noise this year.
Man, honestly, guys, look, I've said it on the pod before. I believe in true honesty and transparency. I definitely should have had the Hornets down lower, man, because I don't know why, but it just totally slipped my mind, like, that Miles Bridges, their second best. I knew that he was the second best player, but think about it. Like, he averaged 20 points per game and 7 rebounds. Now that's just totally getting just washed, because I did some research yesterday and I seen that Miles Bridges' hearing for his case is actually on Monday, October 17th. So no matter what happens, like, this literally changes everything for the Hornets. So absolutely, I do. I'll make a little audible here, man. I definitely got the Hornets at that 12 seed, but instead that I actually have them in the 11 seed, but I should have had them at the 12th seed, but that is my 11th seed. So that's the Hornets. Jay, who you got at the 11th seed?
The 11th seed, I have Washington Wizards. It was a tough battle for the team. I was flip-flopping between the team I have at 10 and this team. But the Wizards is also a team who could compete. They're going to be right in that mix along with these other 3 teams that I have at the 11th, 10th, and 9th, kind of competing for those last few play-in spots. But I think a lot of us are sleeping on the fact that a lot of people, fans, whatever it may be, are sleeping on the fact that Kristaps Porzingis and Bradley Beal didn't play any games together last year, and I think that could be a potentially lethal combo. Their games, as pick and roll partners, we know how lethal Bradley Beal is in the mid range. We know that the stretch versatility that Kristaps Porzingis can offer, and John, how I feel about Kristaps Porzingis. The only thing stopping him from being an elite big man is staying on the floor. When he's playing, I think he's a great player. You know, he can do everything you want in a stretch big. He can handle the ball a little bit at his size. Defensively, when he's engaged, he can be a great rim protector. So I just think I like that combination. And then you look at the other role players that they have, solid NBA veterans, and Kyle Kuzma. He's a plug and play in any team. And also, I will add this little asterisk: if the Wizards aren't competing and they aren't a good team, I can see a lot of teams being on the market and asking potentially about Kyle Kuzma, because he can plug and play for any contender with his skill set. So I'll just add that little piece. But, you know, talking about the rest of the roster, Monte Morris, I think he's a solid NBA piece. Corey Kispert, the rookie. They just got guys, Danny Dia, guys who are, you know, not the biggest names, but who are solid NBA players. And for that reason, they're going to be, you know, right in the mix. And I don't see them being a bad basketball team, but they're not going to be good by any stretch. Just an average team, right around this ranking in the East.
Yeah. So for my 11 seed, I had them a little bit higher than, you know, both of you guys were in agreement. They're, you know, in the bottom three, but I think they're the best of those bottom three teams, and that's the Detroit Pistons. I feel like Cade Cunningham, I've always been high on him. I think he's going to be an all-star this year, you know, in some way, shape, or form. And I think getting Jaden Ivey, who personally for me, you know, I thought, and I do still think that, you know, I know when I talked about this, like with John, he comes at me with Evan Mobley a lot of the times, but I think Cade is the best player in last year's draft class. And I think Jaden Ivey is the best player in this year's draft class, you know, and you pair both of them together, in my opinion, along with getting, you know, Jalen Duren in the draft. They added Bogdanovich, like you guys said. They also have, you know, some other guys too, like Alec Burks, Nerlens Noel, who they added through that Knicks trade. And I don't know, I'm excited to see, like, also Hamidou Diallo. He kind of expanded his game last year to be more than just like a dunker. Like, he was actually like a fluid NBA player. So I think they're going to be better. There's always one of those young teams that's, you know, a little bit surprising and maybe like kind of gets people scared, like, wow, like maybe they're ready or something like that. And I think they're going to kind of do that in a way. I think you said, Jay Hill, like you compared them to the Grizzlies. Like, I could kind of see a little bit of similarities like with that, like from the early times, but I think they're going to just miss in on the play-in, just because I think the other 10 teams above them at this point in time are better, but they're another team that's for tomorrow. Like in 3-4 years, we might be talking about the Pistons. Like, I'm serious saying this, championship contenders, because they might be. So I have them at 11.
Yeah,
Jared, my only question, you know how, well, we've seen in the past with Dwayne Casey and his rotations, you know, with young guys and, you know, cutting young guys off, not giving them that kind of rotation. Like Jaden Ivey, is he going to be starting day one? My question to you, is that like a concern? Because I know for me personally, we've seen what he's done in Toronto. We've seen what he did last year with these young guys in Detroit. I'm just worried about them not getting enough minutes to where they're going to be able to, you know, flourish and really tap into their skill set and develop. Is that a concern for you in Detroit?
It can be. I think this situation, though, like there's just so many, like it's a majority of young guys that you're going to have to play some of them. And at least in the preseason, he's been giving like Jaden Ivey a pretty fair shot. I believe he's been starting. I would be more concerned, I guess, more so like with Jalen Duren, because like you also have to manage Isaiah Stewart in there. So like he might just, you know, give him more playing time early on, and then maybe it would take time to work Duren into the rotation more. But I don't know. I think they have a healthy mix of veterans and also young players that are really talented. And like I said, I just trust Cade, and I think that Jaden Ivey as well is like a perfect match with him. So I think they're going to be pretty decent this year. But, you know, the real conversation with them comes in like maybe 3, 4, 5 years, when I think they're going to hit more towards their prime and they're going to be an elite team probably in the East. At least it trends towards that.
Absolutely. Yeah. They definitely will be an elite team in the East. I am higher on Evan than I am Cade, but I do think that Cade is going to be like one of those, Luka Doncic type players, man. But I can't leave Evan Mobley's side, man. I can't leave Evan Mobley's side. All right, so then let's go ahead and get into this top 10 category, man. These are the teams that now will actually make the play-in. And on my 10th seed, I got the Knicks, man. Solid roster on paper. Brunson, Rose, Barrett, Randall, Cam Reddish, Obi Toppin, Mitchell Robinson, but very similar to yesterday when we were doing the Western Conference prediction, our guy Greg, our guest that we had on, said, I'm tired of seeing it on paper. I need to see it in person. That's what he said about the Kings. And honestly, that's what I'm going to say about the Knicks, man. Like, this looks solid on paper. It really does. But like, I need to see it work in person, because it just hasn't in New York for the past couple of years. I mean, they had that year where Julius Randle kind of, started to take off, and everyone thought he was going to really emerge. And honestly, myself, I thought he was going to emerge as like the 1A type player, and the Knicks are going to take off. But then the following year, right back down to the slump. So the Knicks, with me, unfortunately, I think they just gave Jalen Brunson a bag, and they're still going to be a playing team. But that's why I got at the 10th seed. Jay, are you in accordance with me, or what's going on?
Yeah. I got the Cats in Madison Square Garden right there at number 10. And same thing. You look at their roster, they got some decent pieces. I'm still not sold on their roster, and that's for one reason. Tom Thibodeau, man. You never know what you're gonna to expect from this guy. Is he gonna be playing a backup third string guard over Derrick Rose, over, Jalen Brunson? What we never know what rotations we're going to get. The guys that should be playing seem to never play for Tom Thibodeau. So you never really can expect much from the Knicks besides, 2 years when they had were the 4th or 5th seed. They went on that huge run and were knocked out by the Hawks. But their success this year for me is on the development, and it's tough to say put all your stock in one player, but that's the development of RJ Barrett. I think if he makes a leap this year, they can be at least a little more competitive, right? Still in the same mix, but I think it's time for their third pick in the 2019 draft, RJ Barrett, to take that leap. And we saw a little bit of that when he was, for the most part, the number one option after about midway through the season last year, and took over for a struggling Julius Randle. And they need him. Speaking of Julius Randle, they need him to bounce back in a major year after a disappointing season last year. But not expecting much from the Knicks besides a play-in exit in the first game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Like, this is just like the 15 seed. We're all in agreement. Like, that the Knicks for number 10. They did get better. I don't think Jalen Brunson moves the needle enough to put him over some of these higher teams. And it's like, I know they were the 4 seed a few years ago, but I feel like 2 years ago they overachieved. Last year they underachieved. So they're somewhere in the middle of that like play-in mix. Brunson, I mean, I'm sure he's going to even be a little bit better than he was last year in the season, not the playoffs, because I don't think he's going to go that crazy. But Julius Randle, he's going to still be an elite player, but I just don't see him having the same season he had in 2021. RJ Barrett, he's probably still going to be good for like at least 20 points a game. His development's important. D Rose is going to be 100% healthy. You guys know how I feel about D Rose. But of course, like last year he got hurt in December, and they were like hovering around the 6-7 seed at the time. And then he got hurt and they fell all the way out. So I think his health is also pretty important too. So it's going to come down really to like those guys. It's going to come down to Mitchell Robinson's health. And now it's even more imperative that he stays healthy, because they lost Noel and they lost Taj Gibson. So it's like, if he's injured, like they're going to have to play Isaiah Hartenstein, who is not bad. I mean, he can space the floor, I guess, but I don't know if he plays the style of basketball really that, the Knicks or Tom Thibodeau wants to enforce, at least most of the time. So I don't know, like he might, like you said, like with the weird rotations, he might get the short end of the stick when it comes to that. So I think the Knicks, yeah, they did get better, but I just think these 9 teams above them, like a lot of them also got better, maybe to a better degree, or they were just already a better team before that. So they didn't really have to do much, but I got the Knicks at 10.
Yeah.
Okay. I like that we're all in accordance with that. I'm gonna keep it pushing, but before I get to this next one, Garrett, I got to give you a little bit of background story. So we did the Western Conference predictions episode yesterday, and I had the Timberwolves at the 9th seed, and I caught a bunch of heat and a bunch of stray from Jay. I caught a bunch of heat from stray from our guests. I'm sure when the family out there here at home, some Timberwolves fans might be upset at me, but I think I'm about to catch heat for another one, man. But this is this is who I am. I got to be honest. I got to give my bold predictions, and I do think the Timberwolves will get that 9th seed, but that's for another day. Today, this is what I got. I think the Nets are going to come in at the 9th seed. Okay. And I know it sounds crazy when you look at the roster, right? And I do like the addition of TJ Warren. I do like the addition of Royce O'Neal. But realistically, guys, I just cannot trust their roster throughout an 82-game season. Ben Simmons, we know the type of prima donna and drama he's always on. Kyrie, we never know what he's on. We never know what he's thinking when he's about to just leave for a couple of months. Kevin Durant, I mean, when he's on the court, I guess, he's reliable. He does what he do, but that's just drama from top to bottom. I think for Kevin Durant, as the best player on that team, publicly came out and really disowned Steve Nash and kind of got really out of, I hate to cuss, but the S word, right? He got on him and then he walked it back. And I just think that, that just makes so much for messiness. And I also think that they're extremely top heavy team, man. They're a rolled ankle away from being even worse, honestly, than the 9th seed. I know it sounds crazy because it's what, John, it's Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, but I just can't trust that team above every other team that I have. These 8 teams that I have above them, when I'm looking at their roster, when I'm looking at what they did this offseason, when I'm looking at the players they have, I'm putting my money on the line on these teams above the Nets. I know that's crazy, but Nets and 9th seed. Jay, go ahead, my brother.
That is wild. I do not have the Nets that low. The only thing stopping them really is guys playing, and I don't think Steve Nash is a good coach. Being a great player, being a 2-time MVP doesn't make you a great player. Like I said, I don't even remember what episode, Jay. If the Nets come up to a slow start, he's on the hot seat. He's probably gone, honestly, and they're going to get a basketball coach who's proven himself in the NBA in there because at their disposal, they have great players. I can't have them at 9. I can't have them at low, especially with the talent just purely of Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving. Not to mention they brought in some good NBA basketball players and Royce O'Neal, TJ Warren, and Ben Simmons. He's on it. He has arguably the most to prove in the NBA this year, and I truly think he's going to come in on a mission this year. You're going to expect that. So I don't have him that low at my 9th seed, and the same. And Garrett, you didn't hear this on our last episode. The way I'm looking at teams and personally is 3 words, and that's progress, assess, and regress. So this team I guess technically would be progressing, but it's the Atlanta Hawks. And I guess I would say assess because I look at the Hawks and I don't really know. Do we really know what we're going to get from the Hawks? I don't think so. DeJounte Murray was the number 1 option last year. He's coming in. He's playing with the number 1 option on his team last year, and that's Trae Young, guys who are ball dominant players. How will that work? We don't know. John Collins, does he want to be in Atlanta? We don't know. Is Bogdan Bogdanovic going to be healthy this year? Is DeAndre Hunter going to do anything else besides score and defend? I don't know. Who's going to be the starting center? Is it going to be Onyeka Okongwu? Is it going to be Clint Capella? Is he going to be healthy? What is their rotation? It's just a lot of question marks in Atlanta. And I think 9 is right where they are. 9 is a team who's still trying to figure things out. So I have Atlanta at the 9th seed in the East.
Yeah, so I think this might be the hardest spot on the list just because there's 9 teams that are playoff caliber. I will say I'm happy that neither of you guys picked the Bulls at 9 because I've seen a lot of people picking the Bulls at 9, and it bugs me because I'm there's no way. So obviously I don't have the Bulls 9, but I actually don't have either of those teams that you guys said at number 9. This might be hard just because, their system works, but I just think that they're a little bit overrated. I think last year they kind of had a little bit better of a year than you expected from them. And granted, they had their own injuries, but I think a lot of teams below them had injuries to a worse degree, including my Bulls, including the Nets, and that's the Toronto Raptors. I just
I knew
Yeah.
you was gonna go with the Raptors.
Yes,
Whoa.
I do not believe in the Toronto Raptors.
Whoa.
They didn't do hardly anything in the offseason other than adding maybe Otto Porter. Like in the
Which is
draft,
big.
got Christian Koloko, okay. They got Ron Harper Jr., okay. DJ Wilson, all right. They got Bo Cruz. So I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Sure.
I just personally, I don't trust them. You know what I mean? And I feel like personally, they just don't stack up well. Now, maybe like matchup for matchup with specific teams like Miami or something like that. But I just don't see how they're a better team than a lot of these other guys above them. I think their depth is horrible. Like maybe they're like backup big men or something like that, like with Thad Young per se or something like that. But I don't trust their perimeter depth. Like is Malachi Flynn going to take a step this year to become better? They got Otto Porter Jr. Okay. He also was very successful. You know this yourself, Jay Hill. He was very successful in the Warrior system. Well, I saw a lot of Otto Porter with my Chicago Bulls outside of that Golden State Warrior system. He was not very good. Okay. He sat out a lot of games. He was injury prone, so I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of that happened too with the Raptors this year. They're also a very injury prone team. How many times I think OG Anunoby, he's missed 20 plus games like every year of his career. He missed the whole playoffs when they won the championship, and Scotty Barnes, I think people are trying to anoint him as like almost like the next Giannis or something like that. Like at least Raptors fans are. I do not understand it. I think that I hate saying this because I hate like going so much against, if Raptors fans are watching, but I think he's overrated. Simple as that. I just think that he's really overrated.
Wow.
Fred VanVleet, he was an all-star last year. Don't see him being an all-star again this year. I think the East is just so much better. You had guys like DeJounte Murray, like Donovan Mitchell. Both those guys were all-stars last year too. They're moving from the West to the East. I think Siakam's still going to be great. Will he be all-NBA again? I don't think so. You know what I mean? So one of these teams has to miss it. And if it was maybe a 16-team format, like with both conferences merged, then the Raptors would be in the playoffs. But in the Eastern Conference, I think there's 8 teams better than them. So I have them at 9.
I am shocked, Gary.
Me too.
I am shocked.
I don't believe it.
And I know you're gonna rile up some folks here in Toronto that are listening to this, but I'm shocked. Because if you look at the way that the Raptors are built, and you mentioned the depth, and I understand that, but if you look at their roster, you look at Scotty Barnes, who I'm big on. I think he was deserving of the Rookie of the Year. It could have gone to him or Evan Mobley, but he was throughout the course of the year, his progression. The Raptors had a better record than the Cavaliers. He had a huge part to do with that. But you look at the rest of this roster, you look at Pascal Siakam, his ability to handle the ball, OG Anunoby, Otto Porter Jr., Fred VanVleet, Juan Hernangomez, Gary Trent, Chris Boucher. Those are all, that's 8, that's 8 players right there that I named who can all play. And then, someone else, Thaddeus Young, Precious Achua, they have 6'9", their hybrid model player of 6'9", guards, basically versatile guards who can guard, switch through 1 through 5. I just think any team in the East, any team in the league is going to struggle with that, scoring against that length that they have defensively. And Nick Nurse, the game plans that he uses, I think they added just the right amount of players. Otto Porter, yes, he might not be healthy, but I look at the Warriors and the Raptors as 2 of the model developmental teams in the NBA, and I just don't see them finishing 9th in the league. That's actually I'm gonna say it now, that have them and as a top 4 team in the East this year. It's because they've been establishing themselves. I value chemistry in the NBA. A lot of these teams, you can bring in a star and pair him with another star, similar to a James Harden. The chemistry might not be there. We're talking about a team who's had OG Anunoby, who's had Pascal Siakam, who's had Fred VanVleet, who's had Chris Boucher, who were all part of the championship run. These are guys who have played together for 4 or 5 years and know themselves like the back of their hand, similar to a team like the Warriors. I'm not saying they're the same. I'm not saying they're as good, but knowing each other and playing and establishing that chemistry for that amount of time, that comes at a premium in the NBA. You know, a lot of teams are bouncing teams, and I don't see a Raptors team who knows themselves that well, and knows each other that well, being the 9th seed in the East ahead of, you know, the teams that I have there. So I got to backfire. I can't agree with you on that, man. This is a top 4 team, in my opinion, in the East.
I just feel like personally it puts too much emphasis on availability. And last year, yes, I know they had their injuries. If you compare, though, with teams like the Bulls or teams like the Nets, you know, like a lot of these other teams had injuries to a worse extent. There was a time where they made, for example, as a Bulls fan, I know this, there were 24 players out with COVID in the league. Well, 12 of them were on the Bulls, and they made us play like half a dozen games, and one of them was against the Raptors, right? So I'm just saying, like, against the Heat, against the Cavs, I think we lost all those games. So, like, what I'm saying is that, like, yes, they had their own fair share of, like, you know, knick-knack injuries, whatever. But I think they got a better deal than a lot of other teams. And this year, it's going to put a lot of emphasis on availability because I believe Siakam and VanVleet, they led the league in minutes per game last year. Okay. Mm-hmm. Of the top 10 in minutes per game last year, I believe they had 4 starters in there. Mm-hmm. So what I'm saying is their bench is almost non-existent. If one guy goes down, you know, who's going to fill up that void? Maybe Otto Porter replicates the same thing he did in Golden State. Maybe Malachi Flynn takes a jump. Maybe Thaddeus Young plays like, as we called him, Thaddeus Johnson when he was here, like with the Bulls or something like that. I don't even know if that's enough compared to like some of these other teams in terms of their depth. So I don't know. I think it limits what Nick Nurse can do as a coach because I think he's a really good coach too, but it limits what he can do as well. You saw it in the playoffs. They almost didn't stand a chance against Philadelphia. I know they won a few games here and there, like at the end, but Philadelphia for the most part was kind of destroying them. So I don't know.
I hear you, man. I hear you. Yeah, I definitely don't got the Raptors at the 9th seed, but I also definitely don't got them in my top 4 seed. So we will see. We will see when we're off the Raptors. But yeah, the Raptors are a really exciting team. Looking forward to seeing how they play out this next year. But let me go ahead and kick off my 8th seed, and that's the Hawks, man. To be real with you guys, like I like their roster construction, like as a whole, right? Like with Trae Young, Clint Capella, John Collins, DeAndre Hunter, and I think the addition of DeJounte Murray was like exciting, like, you know, right when you first see it, it's like, wow, like that sounds exciting. But I feel like just like how Jake Hill said, when you think about it from a basketball player's perspective, when you see how the Hawks have been playing last year, when you see how DeJounte Murray's been playing really his entire career he's been in the league, you're like, wait, how is that going to work with only one ball? Wait, like, is Trae Young going to play off ball? Trae Young's kind of small to play that 2/off ball kind of guard. Like, he's really small. Like last year, Trae Young was the second lightest player in the NBA because Darren Collison was on the Lakers. Darren Collison weighed 60 pounds. Trae Young weighs 164 pounds. I'm pretty sure Darren Collison is on the South Bay Lakers now. So that means Trae Young is the lightest player in the NBA, and you're going to move him up to that two guard that I know the league is very positionless, but you're going to move him up where people get a little bigger, people get a little bulkier, players get a little taller. So I just don't see how this is going to work out. Trae Young and DeJounte Murray. Besides that, I like their roster construction, but I think that they got a lot to prove, at least to me personally, between Trae Young and DeJounte Murray working on the court at the same time. There's only one ball. So that's what I got on my 8th seed. Jay, who you got?
Garrett. I got the Windy City Bulls. Well, I guess that's a G League team, but I got the Chicago Bulls coming at 8. It might be high. It might be low, but I just think the losing Lonzo for that amount of time is is going to be detrimental to the team. And this is a team who could, shock me, and I wouldn't be surprised if they finish higher, because DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, who had a down year, let's call it that, last season, but I think he's going to come back, on a mission this season. Vucevic struggled, first time being that low of an option last year, but I think he's going to be a better mix. But I'm also not sold on Billy Donovan as a coach, man. I always question his rotation sometimes. And that's a question mark. I do like the addition of Andre Drummond. When he's at his best, I think there's no real question that he's a force, with his rebounding, his activity, but you never know night to night what Andre Drummond you're going to get. So consistency has always been a big issue for him. I do like that Ayo Dosunmu. Sorry, Garrett, you're an expert. You know this the Bulls better than me, but I do like that he'll be starting for them, because I think he's proved himself a bit in his rookie year. He has showed some flashes there. So, day one, they're giving him the starting nod over Caruso. I like that. But I do think defensively they have versatility with, Caruso, Dosunmu, and then when Lonzo hopefully comes back, in November, December, not sure what his timeline is, they'll be a solid team. But until then, I think they might struggle a bit. And struggling, if you want to call it, being in that 8th, 7th range. But right now I have them at 8th in the East.
Yeah, so my 8th in the East, I don't have my Bulls. But I agree with you, John. I got the Atlanta Hawks as well. I actually think, though, they're kind of going to play it a different way. Like, I know you said like Trey is going to be more so the 2 guard, and that would make sense because obviously he's the better shooter, like getting the more looks. I feel like he's kind of going to be forced into playing the 1, as DeJounte is going to play more off the ball and be more like the perimeter defender. Kind of like doing like more of the little things in terms of that, but obviously still like a scoring playmaking option as well. But I don't know. Overall, I mean, I don't think they got too much better. I mean, that was probably their only like major like fish in the sea per se. But losing, I mean, Gallinari, I'm high on Gallinari. I don't know how much you guys know that, but I'm high on Gallinari. One of the most efficient players statistically of all time on the offensive end. You lose him. You lose Kevin Huerter, who, I mean, he's been with the organization for a while now. That's kind of like what you said, Jay Hill, in terms of the chemistry thing. Like he's kind of been alongside Trae Young, like since Trae Young's been in the league. You know what I mean? And losing him, I mean, he was huge in that game that sent him to the Eastern Conference Finals, like the Game 7 against Philly. So, I mean, I think you're losing a little bit there. And DeLon Wright, I think DeLon Wright had a pretty solid season last year backing up Trae Young. So you take all these guys into account, you throw them out for DeJounte Murray. Do you get better? Probably, like a little bit, but overall, I don't know how much better you get. And I think some of these other teams that were already better in the Eastern Conference, they got better to a better extent. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I'm also not really sold on Nate McMillan as a coach. But if DeAndre Hunter is healthy, which he rarely is, but if he's healthy, I think he could be a most improved player candidate this year. I actually feel like if he is healthy, I mean, this might be like a bold take, but I feel like he'd be the second leading scorer on the team. Like, I feel like Trey would be first, and then I feel like DeAndre Hunter would be second. And then maybe DeJounte could be like the third leading scorer, but more of the playmaking abilities for him. But yeah, so I have them 8th. That's where they were last year. I just don't think they move really anywhere.
Yeah, man. I'm right there with you, Garrett. I just got my qualms with the Hawks. I just don't know if they really got it, man. I don't know if they really got it. Maybe even trying like when Trey's on the floor, DeJounte sits, and then when Trey sits, DeJounte's on. Maybe they'll always keep that pressure. But yeah, I definitely want to see how that's gonna work out. But we'll see. The season's coming up here. But 7th seed. That's the team. Garrett, I think you had a little too high, and Jay, you had too low. I got the Raptors, man. I feel, I even in a way even feel wrong kind of for putting them in the 7th seed, because last year they were they were the 5th seed. I believe they got better, but more than anything, young teams like the Cavaliers, like the Raptors, the Memphis Grizzlies, those young teams. Sometimes it's not even about adding a player or taking a player out. It's about just building scar tissue, just getting more experience, just learning how to be out there. And I mean, I think that's what the Raptors got. The Raptors got definitely the 76ers handled them pretty easily, but I wouldn't say that it was like, wow, the Raptors got outplayed. I just think that the Raptors had no answer for Joel Embiid. And that's a lot of teams in the league really don't have an answer for a player that big, that strong, that fast, that skilled. So that, that's what I would point to. But that's why, I really feel wrong for putting the Raptors, who were the 5th seed last year, in the 7th seed. But realistically, I can't tell you that I think the Raptors are going to be a better team or have a better record than these top 6 teams that I have left. So I got the Raptors coming in at the 7th seed. Jay, who you got? I know not the Raptors.
Yeah, my 7th seed, I got the Cleveland Cavaliers coming at 7. This is a team who's going to be integrating Donovan Mitchell. How is that going to look with Darius Garland? I do like what they're building, with the Twin Towers and Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen. Darius Garland's going to unlock even more of Evan Mobley. He's going to take a leap this year in the 2nd year, but they still got some figuring out to do. What are they going to do at the 3 position? Is Isaac Okoro going to step up and become a more efficient shooter? Remains to be seen. There is a huge emphasis, especially you look at the East and the wings that you're going to have to guard night to night. You're going to be guarding Jason Tatum. You're going to be guarding Kevin Durant. You're going to be guarding DeMar DeRozan, Jimmy Butler. The list goes on of primary scoring wings in the Eastern Conference. And right now, I don't think Isaac Okoro is the answer. Certainly Donovan Mitchell, certainly Darius Garland isn't the answer guarding those guys, because they're giving up so much size and strength. And we know Donovan Mitchell is not the best defender, as he was exposed when he was on the Jazz. So defensively in the guard position, it's an issue. But at the same time, they have the Twin Towers. They can funnel all that traffic into the lanes, and you have your shot blockers in Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley as he develops and gets his timing right as in his 2nd year. So yes, there is some yin and some yang, but I just, for that reason, I have them at the 7th seed. Still fighting, still back in the play-in game again this year. But I do think they have a good chance of making the playoffs this year and winning, fighting their way out of the playing games this year. But I still have them at the 7th seed.
Yeah, I feel like I'll have a few things to say on that, I guess, in terms of the Cavaliers. But that's not the team I'm going with right now. Actually, I mean, had to put my bias a little bit aside, and I had to go with my Chicago Bulls at number 7. Okay. Maybe some people think it's too high. Some people, I mean, maybe like John, I haven't heard him yet, so maybe it's too low for you. The point is, though, like, when people talk about the Bulls, like, all they talk about is, like, Lonzo's going to miss some time. And I get that. Of course, last year, though, in the games without him, I believe we were a little bit above 500. And I think personally we got better because, you add Andre Drummond. We were one of the worst rebounding teams last year. And you add Andre Drummond. I mean, he's arguably the best, at least in terms of backup big men. I think he's the best rebounding big there is in the league. You add Goran Dragic, who I know a lot of people are going to say, like, he's washed, he fell off. Yes, he's not the same player probably that he was 2 years ago, but I think he's going to have a better year than he did last year, because last year, he started off the year with Toronto, didn't really play, but maybe like a couple games, and he sat out for like 5 months before he came back onto the court. There's a lot of rust that comes with that. I don't think he was completely ready. I don't think he was in great shape. Now he's been with the Bulls. I think he's going to be more in better shape throughout most of the season. He's going to be ready for a full 82. He's a little bit older. He might take days off. So probably like 70 or so games in a season. And I think he's still going to contribute at a high level too. I think he's still a solid backup backup point guard for this team behind Ayo, who's going to be the starting point guard. I know you mentioned like, Billy Donovan, like his rotations aren't that great. I think his rotations, at least through preseason, of course it's preseason, but they haven't looked too bad. I think part of it though is we just didn't have a backup big, and like when he was playing guys like Tony Bradley, who I've ripped on more than any other Chicago Bull over the past like year and a half, when he had to play him, we would get destroyed, exposed. But, now we got Andre Drummond, and I get it, he's not a great defender. He's definitely an improvement, I think, off of Tristan Thompson last year, who was just too small. He's a kind of a shell of himself at this point. And in terms of Tony Bradley, I think Tony Bradley is not a great NBA player, like personally. No offense to him, but I just don't think that. And then you also add, Patrick Williams is going to be fully healthy. Alex Caruso is going to be fully healthy. The other thing, too, is that Caruso, he got hurt, and then he got hurt again for 6 weeks in the season when we were really good with him, but he got hurt because Grayson Allen's an idiot, right? We're not going to see something like that again. At least I wouldn't expect so, right? So I think you're going to have him healthy for a majority of the year. Patrick Williams, who played, I believe, every game or very close to his rookie year. Those guys are also supposed to be healthy. And then Dalen Terry in the draft, I think a lot of people are sleeping on him. He gives a ton of energy. He's a great defensive wing. He's a bigger player, like 6'7", 6'8". He's got a long wingspan. I think he's someone that you're going to see as the year goes on. He's going to get more and more shine. So, and you think about, I guess that Lonzo is injured or whatever, but you think about what the Bulls lost in the offseason. The only real loss they had was Troy Brown Jr., who isn't a loss at all because he really was a negative whenever he played. I would almost take Dalen Terry over him right now. And then you also add a Drummond and Dragic. And then whenever, also Patrick Williams really and Caruso, and then Lonzo's going to come back healthy. I think we're going to be better than a lot of people think. So I got him at 7. Tried to be a little bit unbiased there. I feel like you could even make an argument they should be ranked better, but I'm going to keep him at 7.
What do you think about Patrick Williams? Because John and I talked about this earlier. When I look at Patrick Williams and I see, Chicago and how far they can go potentially being a higher seed, like the 4 or 5 seed or a 6 seed. I think if Patrick Williams develops offensively, because we know the flashes and how good he can be defensively. But I always say if he can make those steps offensively and be a real force and a real threat there for the Bulls, they could potentially be a team who's like a 6, 7 seed or potentially higher and, upset, a 3rd seed, whoever you guys have, like a Nets or a Raptors or someone like that in a first round. But what do you think about Patrick Williams? What are your thoughts about him?
I mean, I think he has a lot of he's drawn a lot of comparisons to Kawhi Leonard, and I think it's rightfully so. I think that they kind of shoot similar. Like, I think that defensively, they have big hands and stuff like that. So, and they're both well-rounded, I think, on both ends of the floor. He's a capable shooter. So I think when it comes to that, and also I think the other thing, though, that I would compare him actually to Kawhi is that, sometimes he's a little bit shy. You know what I mean? And like not as aggressive as he should be. Not Kawhi is just seemed like a shy, quiet guy. Like he's not non-aggressive, excuse me. But at the same time, I think Patrick Williams, he kind of executes it like that on the floor sometimes. And maybe that's just because he was just getting thrown into the mix last year, like at the end of the year mainly, and he didn't know how to adjust. Because I think early on the first few games, he was actually playing pretty good. He played the first, I think 4, and we won all those games. But I think if he's aggressive, obviously going to provide better defensively for this team. And I think, honestly, even Vucevic will probably – I get it, he's not a great defender, but I think he will be better defensively than he was last year as well because, he's heard a lot of the noise from last year. Chicago's a big market, right? Outside of maybe LA or New York or those places like Chicago, like their market is huge, right? And their fan base is arguably huger, right? Or bigger, or whatever. So I don't know. I think he's definitely heard the noise and he's going into a contract year. He's going to want to make sure that, I'm playing the best of my abilities so I can get paid ideally from the Bulls. But, if they're not willing to give me something, then some other team will. So I don't know. I think overall, the Bulls are better than what people are giving him credit for. I guess that's like my overall summary. Mainly just because like Lonzo's going to miss some time, but I mean we were over 500 without him, and all these other pieces. I think it makes us better.
Garrett, I am right there with you, my brother. And as a matter of fact, I agree with you so much that I have me even higher than you, well, even lower than you in this instance. Jay, you know how much I'm a low key a Bulls fan on the low. I was pulling for DeMar for MVP for a little bit, and then he kind of fell off. But we'll get there when I talk about the Bulls. 6th seed. I don't mean to be disrespectful, man, but the 6th seed, it's got to be the Miami Heat. Look, man, I know that they were the number 1 seed last year, but I've said time after time after time again, Jay, I'm pretty sure you agree to me on this. I just don't believe in the Heat. Like, maybe it's just me, but like, I just don't believe in their Heat. I don't believe in their Heat, in the Heat. That's funny, but the depth in their roster is all right. It's I definitely like the Victor Oladipo, be able to have the Tyler Heroes and be able to have the Max Strus and Duncan Robinson's off the bench. But my problem is I just don't see them having one number one guy, one go-to guy, and to me that's a problem. I think what that does is that creates identity issues, and you can get throughout the season with the identity issues. But I think, when playoff comes around, you can't be that dominating team without, without a strong identity, without a number one go-to guy. And the rest of these 5 teams, I think, are going to outperform the Miami Heat. So that's who I got at 6 seed.
Yeah, I have the Heat culture at 6 as well. This is a team who's, maybe you could say, I would say overachieved last year. They're strictly, they're up there with one of the best cultures in the NBA, what they built over time, Eric Spoelstra being ahead of the snake. But this is a team who just, up to top to bottom, their roster doesn't really move the needle for me. An aging Kyle Lowry at the point. You look at the rest of the guys, Tyler Hero got the bag. Jimmy Butler, Bam, they want him to take a step up offensively. Is he going to do that? Is he going to take more charge? I don't know. We saw how he struggled in the playoffs. So just a lot of, question marks for the Heat. It's definitely going to be a regression because I don't see them being the number 1 seed in the East again this year because there's just a lot of better teams than them. Hopefully there's no COVID that will influence the season. These guys missing time like they did last year. Hopefully no injuries, but a fully healthy East, I don't see them finishing in the top 5. They're definitely not in my top 5 in the East because, like you said, John, perfectly with all the question marks that they have.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement. I have the Miami Heat number 6. And I really think the Bulls are actually a better candidate at the 6th seed than the Heat, which might be surprising. I just didn't want to put it because, first of all, I feel like maybe I was like, what? I was really thinking about it, but I was thinking like maybe my bias is showing a little bit. And, the Heat, you got to give them some respect. They were the 1 seed last year. They made it to the conference finals, almost the finals. But I don't know. I'm not really sold. Like, I think like we're all kind of like in the same wavelength here. We're saying like the Heat, like they don't like move me in that way, in the same way like a lot of these other higher teams do. Like they added Jamal Cain, Orlando Robinson, Darius Days, and Nikola Jovic like through the draft or free agency, like signings, whatever. Maybe if it was Nikola Jokic, like that'd be a different conversation. But I just don't know. Like they added a lot of like young guys that probably won't get too much light. And then the big loss is PJ Tucker.
Yes.
Losing him, he's probably their only loss, but I think he's a huge one because the year before, when they didn't have him, they were the 6th seed too. And, you could argue that there's even more competition right now. So I don't know. I feel like personally the Heat, they did have a little bit of a fluke year last year. Apparently Pat Riley set out like a goal for Kyle Lowry to like lose some weight in the offseason, and he like failed it or something like that too. So that gives me the impression that Kyle Lowry probably isn't in the best shape. So we don't know what to expect from him. Oladipo, I mean, it's at the point I think with him where it's like we got to see it to believe if he's, back or at least like close to the form that they expected to get from him. Duncan Robinson, what's going to happen with him? He was getting DNPs in the playoffs last year. So, like, there's too many things like that. I feel like this team's identity from when they were in the bubble is completely different. And I give them credit last year because they did make the conference finals, close to the finals, through all the injuries. I just think that it's hard, like, to bet on a team like that when you have a good assumption or a good feeling that they're probably going to be going through a lot of the same things again. Like, Lowry is probably going to miss a decent amount of games. Didn't even talk about Bam or Jimmy Butler. I mean, both those guys missed a decent amount of games last year. They're just like kind of their star quality players. So it's hard to still bet on them when you have a feeling that they're all going to miss a decent amount of games. That's just not how it works, at least for me. So I have them 6. Was really tempted to put them at 7, but I decided to give them respect just because, they are a more developed culture, I think, than the Bulls. I just personally think the Bulls' talent overall is probably, I don't know, like I would not be surprised. But yeah, I'll just say that I have the Heat at 6. I don't want to get too crazy into these like hot takes or whatever, but yeah.
Garrett, man, I think that the fact that you're a Bulls fan kept you away from putting the Bulls above the Heat. And look, man, I'm right there with you. I think the Bulls are going to be better than the Heat this year. I have the Bulls coming at the 5th seed. Everything you said about the Heat, I'm right there with you on. I did debate on putting them at the 7th seed as well. But the problem is they've been having too deep of playoff runs as of late, and that would be just like disrespectful and then the depth on their roster. But yeah, 5th seed, I have the Chicago Bulls. Honestly, this team is deeper than I think people realize. I mean, like last year, they really got that next man up mentality. Remember last year, Gary, when you were talking about the whole COVID was like ramping up and getting crazy. Yeah, I do remember when the Bulls had like almost all their starters were out due to COVID.
They made us play, but they made all these other teams, like they canceled their games and stuff like that. So I just thought that's also something, that's
exactly right. And then players like Kobe White, Javonte Green, Ayo Dosunmu, really these bench players came in and produced and stepped up and honestly saved the Bulls from having a horrendous season, because that could have went south quick and the Bulls could have been fighting. I'm talking maybe like, play in 9-10 seed potentially. So now, the Bulls are running it back. They're healthy, somewhat healthy, because Lonzo Ball is not here. Yeah, Patrick Williams is coming back. I'm a big believer in Patrick Williams. I think a big area that they struggled in last year is defense. He's a great defender for them. Actually, probably one of their leading defenders. Would love to see Zoe out there. You know how much of a great guard and defensive guard he is, but we're not going to get to see him for some time. And then Andre Drummond, he's not ideal. What I've been saying is like, look, Andre Drummond was not the person you wanted to go with, but he's like a Walmart version of the person you wanted to go with. Like you're not tripping. You're like, you know what? I don't want that, but I'll take Andre Drummond instead of Tristan Thompson, man. Because they just got bullied and embarrassed by the Bucks bigs last year. So that's good to have a big body in there. Don't get me started on Dalen Terry, man. I was watching all those Rico Hines runs. He's legit. I understand that pickup basketball and NBA basketball are two different things, but Dalen Terry is legit. The Bulls, I think, have a legit shot. At title, I don't know, because I think that's between two teams in the East, but I think they're in the top 5 seeds for me. Rambled on a little bit on that one, but shout out Bulls.
Yeah, I got the Nets at number 5, coming in on number 5. I think that might be a little too low for them, honestly, because of the talent they have. They have Kevin Durant, they have Kyrie Irving, and hopefully both of those guys are healthy for the majority of the season this year. And then Ben Simmons. Those 3 guys alone, that's enough talent to take you to the title, to potentially win a title if the rest of the bench unit that they added and improved on this year. I think Nick Claxton's going to take a step up this year. They got Patty Mills back. Joe Harris, very underrated player who was missing all of last year. A 3-and-D stretch guy. It remains to be seen if his ankle is going to hold up, because I've heard, Steps talking of his ankle just might not be ready to go for the start of the season, but he's he's been looking good in his rehab and coming back and everything. And I just like that the Nets, what they've been doing and adding around, Bryce O'Neal, and the rest of this bench unit that they have, so we'll see what the Nets can do. On paper, they have a solid team. They have a team who can compete. And Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, that duo alone led them, to an inch away from being in the Eastern Conference Finals, or beating the Bucks a year ago or 2 years ago. So this is a team.
The finals, Jay Hill. They would have beat the Hawks too. Like,
Make facts. They were an inch away. So having them at 5 could be a little, to be honest, could be a little low. I could see them finishing higher than 5. In the power rankings, if we were doing a power rankings, I would have them higher, possibly top 3. But we're doing predictions on finishing the regular season. And it remains to be seen if those guys can stay healthy, or, Kyrie's not going to miss for a wedding, or he'll be away for personal mental health. We don't know. Ben Simmons, if he's going to be meant to miss some time. So we don't know. We really don't know what to expect from these guys in the regular season. But when they're at their best, we know they can compete with anyone in the league. So I have the Nets at 5. Garrett, who you got, man?
Yeah, so my number 5. See, this was a really tough one because I've never seen a team who had an offseason that was so great and so bad at the same time. And I had this team like about a month and a half ago. I had them like number 1. I had the number 1 as like they're going to be the best record this year. Now I had to drop them to 5 just because of other things that have happened, and that's the Boston Celtics. Just because everything is so tight knit in there. Losing Udoka, that's going to be a huge blow. I think the chemistry within the organization is going to start to like maybe spiral a little bit worse. I don't know. Like it's hard to predict those things, but you kind of have that feeling that it will. I like the addition of Malcolm Brogdon. I really do. And I also like the addition of Gallinari. Of course, now he's going to miss basically the whole year with his torn ACL. You also have, Robert Williams, who's going to miss a decent amount of time early in the year, and then as for like, you look at the rest of the guys that they added, they didn't really add anything. I mean, Blake Griffin, okay, I guess, they lost Aaron Naismith, Daniel Tice, that they didn't really lose much. But the point is, I just feel like the overall, feeling within the organization is a little bit weird right now. And I feel like as a result, it's going to like kind of turn on them, in a bit of a weird way. I also, I know they were the 2nd seed last year. I probably also think that even though this is all tight, like I said, but taking into account too, like their star players, they have some history of being inconsistent at times. So I wouldn't be surprised if maybe they beat a team like the Bucks and then they turn around and lose to a team like the Thunder or something like that. Like they just seem like one of those teams that are most likely going to have that happen. They have had that happen over past years. And I get it happens to a lot of teams, but I think more so probably with them than you would expect of a team of their caliber. So I have them 5th. And again, I've never seen a team have such a great offseason. They got Brogdon, Gallinari. I'm like, this is great. Like they're looking nice. And then you lose Udoka, Gallinari's hurt, Robert Williams hurt. And it's like, well, geez, like that turned dark really fast. So I have them 5th, but I would not be surprised if they finish higher. This is where I have them.
Okay, I like that. Celtics at the 5th. Let me run off my 4th, and that's the Cavs, man. I just think with the addition of Donovan Mitchell, man, I don't know if it's just me. I just feel like the Cavs are just going to just pick up exactly where they left off last year in the season, except adding a player like Donovan Mitchell, which gives you a huge amount of a huge boost in confidence, a huge just hope, a huge boost in your hope to just pick up exactly where you were last season. I think Evan Mobley is going to take a big jump. I'm talking like he's going to easily average a double-double nightly like last year as a rookie, 15 points per game, 8 rebounds. I think he's going to definitely surpass that 8 rebounds, be averaging double-double nightly. Twin Towers, Jay, you talked about that. I do agree that, when teams go small and also the perimeter defense of the Cavs is definitely a bit worrisome. But the way I was looking at it was like, man, I mean, you have the Twin Towers in Mobley and Jared Allen. I mean, Robin Lopez isn't a great defender anymore, but Robin Lopez, and you have these bigs that I think Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, Ricky Rubio, Karis LeVert, Isaac Okoro, the guards, they can just funnel them inside and then kind of allow for these these Twin Towers to take care of it. And also, man, let's just not forget about JB Bickerstaff, man. He's a great coach. So shout out the Cavs. I'm expecting a big season from them. Big season from them. Top 4 seed for me. Jay, who you got in that 4th seed? I just you look kind of crazy when I say Cavs.
Yeah, no, I mean, we'll see. I'm just hesitant always to have teams who have that integration process, who have new guys, new stars, especially to come in. So I'm a little hesitant to anoint them a top 4 seed in any conference. Although I did it yesterday with the Timberwolves being 4 seed. But let's talk about number 4, and that's who I got. Who reside in the Scotiabank Arena. They call that home, and that's the Toronto Raptors, resident of the city. But I think the Raptors are coming in hot this year. I think they've got the same starting 5 back. Potentially Gary Trent might be out at some point. Precious Achiuwa slides in, but I just love their 1 through 5 switchability. Surrounding Fred VanVleet, their catalyst, their playmaker, with 4 6'9" guards, basically guys who can handle the ball, who can shoot, pass, gritty defenders, defensively can match up with pretty much anyone in the NBA. And I love that. I think that comes at such a premium in the NBA. And I think that kind of size, strength, and athleticism can't be replicated. And it's hard. As any team coming up against the Raptors, it's a nightmare matchup, honestly. Pascal Siakam could score. Scotty Barnes, I think, is going to take a big leap in his second year. OG Anunoby, if he stays healthy, he can, potentially be a 1-2 third option for them. So a lot of scoring, great defense. The Raptors can compete and be a top 4 seed, in my opinion, this year. And they added a little bit more depth to counter your point, Garrett. In Otto Porter Jr., Hernan Gomez might see some minutes. And then they have, not to mention, if they don't need to rely potentially on Malachi Flynn, they can rely on, the built-in guards, 6'9" guards, in Scotty Barnes, who's, Nick Nurse said is going to be potentially playing some point guard this year, and Pascal Siakam, who can handle the ball, create for his teammates as well. So I just love how they can score and have point of attack creators at pretty much 1 through 5, honestly. So scary nightmare matchup. Toronto Raptors, I have them as my 4th seed. Might be a little high, but that's where I got them right now.
I don't know. It might be disrespectful to say, but I feel like Juan Hernan Gomez, I trust him more as an actor than I do as an NBA player.
He's an elite baller. Come on,
elite baller.
He's elite in that movie, man.
He was in that movie. He was in that movie. So my number 4 though.
That's fair.
My number 4 though, I have the Brooklyn Nets, who they're still going to be up there. I think actually, they did get better, like adding TJ Warren, Royce O'Neal, Markieff Morris, like they got a lot better in terms of a talent standpoint. Now they have Seth Curry and Joe Harris. Both those guys were top 6 in the league in 3-point percentage off catch and shoots last year. But then, of course, Joe Harris missed a lot of the season because he was injured. You're going to add him back. And then, Kyrie Irving, yes, I know he's a mystery, but I think he's not going to play as little games as he did last year, mainly because he sat out literally like half the season with the whole like COVID thing. But I think he'll probably, you're going to expect him to miss some games, like doing something stupid or something like that, probably. But I would say like he would probably play about as many games as in 2021. And that was the year, like you said, Jay Hill, they were almost like an inch away from going to the finals. So I think he's going to play more games. and that always helps. Kevin Durant, I would expect him to play more games. I mean, he had an injury that kept him out for about like a little over a month or something like that, maybe even longer. It was so long ago now, I don't remember. It might have been a month and a half. But and then the pieces that they lost, I get that they lost Drummond and Dragic. I just personally think that for their system, that Drummond was not a great fit. I don't think Drummond can be your starting center. Okay, let me address this as a Bulls fan. As a backup, I think he's great because he's playing in a limited reserve role and he's asked to do like maybe one or two things. But I think as a starter, you're putting a lot of pressure on him. I just don't see how that works. And that's why it never worked when he was kind of like the focal point in Detroit for all those years. So I just, I think it's a different role for him in Chicago than he was in Brooklyn. And they couldn't have really relied on him like that. In terms of like Goran Dragic, of course, like I said, like he just really didn't have his legs under him, I don't think, at that time. I think really their only major loss probably is Bruce Brown going to the Nuggets because he played well in the playoffs. But I think when you add in like, guys like Warren, O'Neal, Joe Harris coming back, Seth Curry for a full year, like I think, Kyrie, Ben Simmons is available and it looks like he's most likely, I mean, Ben Simmons' presence alone is going to make a team better, right? I mean, like, I know, yeah, he can't shoot, but, he's an all-star caliber player still. And I think the fact that he's playing at all is better than last year because he didn't play at all, right? So all these things considered, yes, the chemistry might be seen as a little bit whack, but I think that's going to quickly, they're going to quickly forget about that to the same extent. As time goes on and they're getting closer to the playoffs, they're looking more like a solidified team that they thought they were, in 2021, and they got so close. They had the injuries and then still came very close. So I have them number 4, personally.
Okay. Number four. I mean, I got them a little low. I got them, a little higher, I guess, on my list per se. But I totally respect that. But all right, so let's keep it pushing. I will kick off my number 3, and that's the Celtics, man. Garrett, I like how you said I did have them sitting at the top, but with everything that's been happening, I don't have them dropped to the 5th seed, but I have them dropped to the 3rd seed. And I think the loss of Ime Udoka is going to hurt. And in a way, I think this is ultimately going to, decide a question that I feel like a lot of people in the basketball world's asked, like, oh, who's more important, like a player or a coach? Because player brings this and who's on the court actually getting it done. The coach really kind of sets you up to win. And I think this is going to kind of, in a way, answer that question. In my opinion, is players, but which is why I think the Celtics are still, going to be a top elite team in the East. Love the addition of Malcolm Brogdon. That's like exactly what they needed. Very upsetting to see Danilo Gallinari out, because I also think I'm also high on Danilo Gallinari, Garrett. Great move. But Celtics sitting at the 3rd seed. I just couldn't have them above 2 and 1. Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, Jay, right there with you. I got the Celtics at the 3. Not much to add. Realistically, yeah, they're without Ime Udoka, but let's be honest, the players play the game, the coaches make the game plans and their job to adjust. Joe Masula was on the coaching staff last year, and he saw all the things that were happening in the locker room. He was in on those team meetings with the coaches only meetings. He was in on the game plans, all that. So I don't know if it'll be that much of an issue, much of a kind of adjustment period, but definitely will be a little bit. And then Jason Tatum, will he take the next step? Will he make the leap? Jaylen Brown, will they be, less playmaker, have the ball less in their hands? I think they will, because I love the addition of Malcolm Brogdon. He's going to take the ball out of their hands more. He's going to be the primary playmaker, and they're just going to do what they do best, which is, scoring in 1 to 2, maybe 3 dribbles, keeping it simple rather than kind of extending the play, having the ball in their hands for, majority of the shot clock, and then, creating a lot of turnovers that way for themselves, keeping it simple. Malcolm Brogdon's a perfect, guard to have there in the system, because that's what they needed last year. They got Marcus Smart back. Robert Williams may hurt a little bit, but that's why you got Al Horford, the veteran player in there at the center. to anchor down that team. But yeah, I got the Boston Celtics regressing a little bit, but still a top 3 team in the East, just simply based off talent. Having the experience, the scar tissue last year, making it all the way to the finals, and they got something to prove this year. And I think there'll be a huge motivating factor for them coming into the season.
Yeah, my number 3, I have the Milwaukee Bucks. They're basically the same team as last year. No huge moves. I mean, like Giannis, Middleton, Holiday, Brook Lopez. These guys are gonna they're gonna get you up there. Maybe top 3 or so seed. I just don't think they care about number 1. But I don't know. I think the Bucks very well could have been at least in the finals. Maybe could have won the championship if Middleton was healthy. I know Jay Hill doesn't like me saying that. But yeah, I think they're going to be a top 3 seed. But yeah.
Man, Garrett, wow, you're tripping, man. I mean, the
you
Bucks,
think that's too low? Wait, you think that's too low?
That's just too low. Like they're the Bucks.
I feel like personally they won't care enough about the 1 seed. Is my thing. If they wanted the 1 seed, they could get it. That's what I'll say. But I feel like 3 is fine. They were the 3 seed last year. They were the 3 seed year before. I think it's just meant to be. They're going to be 3rd again. And it's not just because they can't get 1. They can, obviously. I just don't think they'll care enough to get it, is my assessment.
Okay. I like that. Let's see. But let me see. Let me run off my second seed, and that's the 76ers, man. I mean, I really do believe in James Harden. He's back in shape. He looks back in shape. I believe he's one of those players who just has those on or off switch, and he just had it off in Houston, and now he's going to turn it right back on when he's in Philly. I know who James Harden is. I know he's proven himself as a player in the past, but I think this year he has a lot to prove. Not only, not to me, but I feel like to the world, because a lot of the world's written him off. He got it, and he's also got to prove that he's a winner. He can't just be someone who just puts up numbers. He's got to be James Harden, the winner, not James Harden, the one who just scores and gets a bunch of assists every single game, but loses. So I think this year is going to be arguably one of maybe overall best career year for James Harden. I think Joel Embiid, Jay, this very well. I think Joel Embiid's gotten robbed of the MVP the last 2 years. I think he's coming with a vengeance. He's got something to prove. When you mix that up, you mix Joel Embiid with something to prove, with James Harden with something to prove. James Harden, arguably, I talk about this all the time, best ball handler out of the pick and roll in the league. Joel Embiid, really one of the best options to have rolling in the league. Bigs options are just endless, man. I mean, you could hit Harden on the 3. You could go to Joel on the roll, the lob. Also, Joel Embiid never played with a guard like James Harden. Ben Simmons just limited him so much being out there. This is also, in my opinion, the best team built around Joel Embiid and the 76ers. I mean, you got dogs. You got dogs on that team. So I'm going 76ers.
Retweet. Yeah, I'm right there with you. Yeah, I got Philly at second and the second seed for all the reasons you mentioned, Jay. Nothing really to add on there. It's a season to prove for these guys. Season to prove for Doc Rivers. Folks saying he can't coach. He hasn't been the same since 2008. And I mean, let's be real. He's underperformed as a coach with all the talented teams. There's no reason you even look back to the Clipper days that team never made a Western Conference Finals. So you got to start asking questions from the top down there. How I feel about Joel Embiid, how he's always had, it's the other guy's problem. It's Ben Simmons. What is Ben Simmons not doing? It's James Harden, why they should have been better. So now Joel Embiid's got to look in the mirror. So it's a season to prove for him. James Harden has been an amazing regular season player throughout his whole career, but we know that what the talk has always been, can't get it done in the playoffs. So it's a season to prove for him in that regard. And I do like all the additions, the dogs they added, and PJ Tucker and D'Anthony Melton. That's going to be a nice complementary roles. And you know who I love, Tyrese Maxey. I think this is going to be a breakout year for him. We saw the improvements that he made last year, but I think he's going to continue to improve. I was watching the Real Training Camp or whatever, the new kind of live practice that they have, the NBA TV was piloting this season. I'm not sure if this is the first year they did it, but I was watching Philly, and a clip from that. And Doc Rivers was just saying to Tyrese Maxey, we want you to be aggressive, come up the floor, looking to make plays. Don't defer to guys. Take the driver's seat, be in the driver's seat, be in control of this offense. And I think we're going to see a more aggressive, motivated breakout year from Tyrese Maxey. And I think it's only up for the Sixers this year at the top of the East. But Garrett, what do you feel?
Yeah, so my number 2 probably might be a little bit of a surprise team. If you've noticed, I've left one off so far, and that's the Cleveland Cavaliers. I think that they're going to be second. Here's the thing with the Cavaliers is that last year, for a decent chunk of the year, when and they still had injuries even prior to this. I think this is even like after Ricky Rubio tore his ACL and stuff like that too. They were sitting up there as like a top 3 seed in the East, right? And then they ended up flying down. Everyone went down like crazy. Jared Allen went out. Evan Mobley went out. And this was all done like without, right, Colin Sexton too. But then they started to fly down. They still finished 44-38 after all that, the 8th seed. And they only lost in the play-in, I think, really, because, Jared Allen was kind of a shell of himself. He just came back that day. If it was a healthy Jared Allen, they still would have made the playoffs, I think. I think they would have beat Atlanta in that play-in game. They had home court advantage and everything.
Yeah.
But then you factor in, so Ricky Rubio was traded for, Karis LeVert at, I think at the trade deadline or something. And then they just signed Ricky Rubio back. I know he's going to miss some time with the injuries. But he's still going to be in the locker room as a presence, and he's going to come back midway through the year. So essentially, they just took Karis LeVert straight out of Indiana and brought him over to Cleveland, right? They got Robin Lopez as a solid backup big. Even though I mentioned earlier, like between Cade and Evan Mobley, that I think Cade is the better of the two in terms of like best player from the draft class in 2021. I still think Evan Mobley's a great player, and I think he's going to improve this year too. And then Jared Allen as well. He's still going to be a force inside. You got multiple players on this team that have made the NBA Finals and have experience there. And then you look at Darius Garland, who was an all-star last year. And then on top of it all, you add Donovan Mitchell into the mix. I mean, this is one of the best playoff performers in the league. And he's also a guy who's made the playoffs every year of his career. And on top of it all, and I've been watching like them in preseason, his defense looks really good. I think part of it too is, he came into the league when the Jazz the Jazz didn't draft him. When the Nuggets drafted him and traded him to Utah was expecting Donovan Mitchell, the defender, because that's what he was seen as all throughout like college and stuff. He's an elite defender, right? As time went on, they had to ask him to do more and more. That was right after they lost Gordon Hayward. Someone had to fill in that role. And he became the primary scorer on the team. He's averaged 20 a game every year. When he got the extension in 2021, he was seen as Donovan Mitchell, the scorer, right? And all the other guys around him, like Conley, Bogdanovich, obviously Gobert, Royce O'Neal, stuff like that, they were meant to surround him with, catch and shoot abilities, which they did a lot of that in terms of volume, and defense, right? And outside of maybe Gobert, because Gobert was asked to do a lot of those guys weren't doing it. Like Mike Conley has regressed as a defender. Bogdanovich has regressed. But now you got him in Cleveland. Their whole system, I've been watching him too. He's been playing really nice defense. So I think he's more bought in on that end of the floor. And at the same time, it's still Donovan Mitchell, the scorer, that he got the extension in 2021. You add all this together, and I think it's, a match made in heaven. They're going to be a great team in the regular season at the very least. You think about, too, the trade for Mitchell. Like, they traded Sexton, Markkanen, and Ochai Agbaji. Like, Agbaji was a draft pick, and Sexton didn't hardly play at all last year. So you basically just traded Lowry Markkanen for Donovan Mitchell. I mean, that's a win, if you ask me personally. So all that considered, and, they also got screwed a lot by injuries last year. I would expect them to be at least a little bit more healthy. I got them number 2 in the Eastern Conference.
Wow. I'll say, Garrett, I'll be honest, man, that is a bold prediction because of, the integration of Donovan Mitchell and all that. But hey, I like it. It's not a bad one, man. So I like that. But all right, guys. So then let me go ahead and run off my first seed, which is what we're all here for. What the family has been listening to this lengthy episode for. The number one seed, it's got to be the Bucks, man. I mean, healthy team, healthy roster. I think, in my opinion, they're the best team in the league. They're the hardest team to beat in a 7-game series. Everything, man, from offensively to the options they have, to the lineups they can run, to defensively, to the versatile different lineups of Giannis out of 5, Giannis out of 3, Giannis, Brooke Lopez out there, Serge Ibaka. I think that team, it's trees, man. It's trees, and then Giannis, and then you're bringing back a healthy Chris Middleton. They're probably my favorites for the championship this year. So I'm going with the Bucks.
Yeah, Jay, I'm right there with you. My first seed, well, for the first seed, I have the Milwaukee Bucks. I think they're the second best team and right under that second tier below the defending champion Golden State Warriors. I think they're they're coming out of the East, but I definitely have the Warriors as the best team, defending champions right now. Having them going back to back this year. But yeah, no, I think the Bucks well, Chris Middleton, like Garrett said, I think they would have been in the potentially in the finals. But we'll never know. And they could have, given the Warriors maybe a better test, but the Celtics brought them to 6, so that's pretty good of a test in itself. But yeah, no, the Bucks. This is a team who, led by Giannis, who I believe is the best player in the NBA right now, can get it done both offensively and defensively. And then you look at their supporting cast, Drew Holiday. I don't think there's any, better complementary guard that they could ask for. And then you look down the line of the young guys and the depth that they still have there. I just think it's, a recipe for success. And, Budenholzer, he's still a question mark of a coach, but he still has the right game plan and mindset and mentality. And I think he's been growing as a coach. But I'm still a little question mark. But I still think this roster wise, they're the best in the East, and a motivated Giannis is scary for the rest of the league. I keep saying that, and that's the theme for this year. So I have them at 1.
Yeah, I mean, I could respect that, and I could see it happening too. I have my number 1 seed. I have the Philadelphia 76ers. Like you said, John, I think James Harden, he's got a lot to prove in a certain sense of, like the playoffs and everything like that. But just, I guess, in terms too of his work ethic in the off season, I think that's another thing, just because like the last few off seasons, it seems like, it's been more so about like partying, whatever. I would say like since 2017 is probably the last time where, he kind of like focused more on like his body and like getting right and stuff like that. And I think he's done that too, like in this offseason. I think that he's done just what he did in 2017. That was before the season they won 65 games with Houston. I don't think they're going to win 65 games, but I think you're going to see like James Harden and Joel Embiid, click as like a solid 1-2 throughout the whole year. And on top of that, Tyrese Maxey, I mean, like he's probably going to be, I would say maybe like a 20-point per game scorer this year too. On top of that, you still have Tobias Harris. You have PJ Tucker. You basically stole him straight from Miami, who, he kind of played a huge role to some extent in that series when they played in the playoffs. Actually, like when he got hurt that one game, I remember that's like when Philly started going on a run. I can't remember what game that was. And then also DeAnthony Melton, I think he's one of the more underrated guards off the bench. It's like a 6-man in the league. And he was kind of getting like hidden away, like in Memphis. Really, no one was talking about him. But the year before, he was playing really good. And I think you add him to Philadelphia, I think he could do a lot of things maybe that Tyrese Maxey is capable of doing, but just off the bench and like a Walmart version per se. You had Daniel House, you had Montrezl Harrell, and really the players they lost, like they didn't do too much. Like maybe Danny Green, okay, you lost him, he's injured anyways. What was he going to contribute to this team this year? DeAndre Jordan, I think losing him is a plus. Really, at this point in his career, like I'm sorry. And then again, like James Harden is, he looks like he's in better shape. And I think Joel Embiid, again, is going to play like an MVP candidate. He's been relatively healthy the past few years, and I would expect him to be so as well again, at least to the extent where, he's playing a majority of the games. And yeah, I think that they're going to, show a lot of people in the regular season. I feel like this is like, I know you said this is maybe the best team they built around Joel Embiid, and I would say like that's true. Maybe not the best Sixers team they had, because you could argue like the Jimmy Butler, JJ Redick team as well. But I think like this is specifically built around Joel Embiid. Like he's the focal point, and like Harden's kind of like the main playmaker. Maxey is like the perimeter scorer and stuff like that. Like, but it all starts with Joel Embiid, and I think among those teams, like this is the best team they've had. And I think they're a serious threat at winning the championship too. Man. I'm not saying they'll be the favorites, not saying I'm picking them to win the East, but they very well could. And yeah, I don't know. It should be interesting. Really, it should be interesting to see how this all unfolds, to be honest.
Yeah.
Absolutely, man. The Eastern Conference is going to be an interesting thing for us to watch all year and, stay up to date with. But man, I mean, here, for the family, that's a good place for us to go ahead and wrap it up, man. Here, this is our predictions for the Eastern Conference, 15-1. Garrett, man, me and Jay really want to thank you for coming on the pod again. Is there any final words you want to say before we sign off here?
Nah, man. I mean, just go Bulls. I don't know. I've seen a lot of Bulls hate lately, so I'm just hoping for a good season for my Bulls. And I think the playoffs this year, I mean, like I know like this is a regular season, but I think the playoffs this year are gonna. It seems like a broken record because every year it's like, oh, they're gonna be so great. Oh, they're gonna be great. Like this year, I'm like really excited because there's a lot of people coming back. Not even just the East, but like on the West side of things, like you got Kawhi, you got Dame, you got Zion. All these guys are coming back. Like. It should just be interesting to see how the NBA unfolds this year. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Thanks for coming on, Gary. Always appreciate and love having you on the show. And yeah, couldn't repeat those words any better. This is gonna be an interesting year. Praying for health and hopefully everyone stays healthy. But this is shaping up to be one of the best seasons we've had in a while.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So what that means for the family out there, man. Make sure you guys stay up to date with all the episodes that we're going to have going on throughout the season. Make sure you guys stay up to date with my guy, Garrett, man, in the Super Mario Hoops 24 channel. I'm going to link everything in the description down below. So make sure you guys go check him out. Go show him some love. But if that's it, then we out here, y'all. Clutch Talk out.
Peace.